Minister, this morning in the Irish Times we saw that there are some universities which are having to accept people on a kind of a randomised basis to certain courses because so many people got high points during the recent exams that there aren't enough spaces to go around. So some people are having their academic fate decided effectively by a coin flip. And obviously we know there has been great inflation over the last couple of years, which was a deliberate policy. So do you understand why some people, some students who might potentially lose out from this would argue that this is fundamentally unfair and fundamentally avoidable as well?
Well, I suppose in the first instance we won't know what's really happening until those CEO offers are made this afternoon, and we will see at 2 o'clock or shortly before 2 o'clock. As regards the great inflation, I think we have to cast our minds back, and it can be difficult at times when we're in the present moment to look back. But during COVID, it was important that our young people would have a leaving certificate and would have a passport to take up whatever opportunities they wanted, whether in the world of work or whether it was in further education or whether it was an apprenticeship or whether it was in higher level or whatever the case might be. To facilitate that, accredited grades, calculated grades where the staff in school provided those grades, that was provided for. And there was an inflation when you were to compare to what happened in 2019. So to be fair then to the students who were impacted by COVID over those years, and remember this year, for example, 80% of this year's cohort never sat a state exam. So they didn't have an opportunity to sit the junior cycle because of COVID, and therefore this was their first state exam. So to be fair to everybody concerned, that same level of grade inflation was applied this year, last year and the previous year. So there was that sense of equity. So every opportunity in terms of fairness was applied there. But notwithstanding that, we do have to move post-COVID. And so I have announced that, going forward, there will be that grade inflation will decrease over time, over the next number of years, beginning next year. And I think that's important too. But I think it is very important to say that right throughout COVID, no one cohort of students should be disadvantaged because of the achievement of the previous cohort. And so accommodations were made on the papers for students over the past 3 years. They continued. Those accommodations will be in place next year. But the actual uplift of this within around over 7% this year, that would start to decrease. But it was done out of the spirit of fairness so that each of the cohorts over these last 3 years, as a consequence of the impact of COVID, that they would have a fair opportunity to face down, I suppose, the achievements of the previous year.
So would you have a message maybe for somebody who feels like they worked really hard in their exams and then they would have missed out because of this great inflation, that somebody else might have had their grade inflated and that they're now going to not get their dream course in whatever high point field they might have?
Just 2 points on that. One is that there has been an increase in places, and I want to acknowledge the work of the higher institutions in terms of CEO places now, and indeed the Minister in that respect as well, to ensure that there has been a greater provision of places. And last year, and I have no doubt, and again I can't say it with definition until I suppose we get the results now, in and around 50-60% of students received their first offer, their first choice offer last year, and I would hope that would be similar.
That's cold comfort obviously to the person who doesn't.
Absolutely, and I want to be clear and say, so measures have been taken in terms of making additional places. And look, I know either before COVID, during COVID, and indeed after COVID, there will always be students who will not have received whatever their first choice might have been. Notwithstanding, we've seen every single year a greater increase in those who have received their first choice. That has always been the case. And so we are saying to students now, there are other avenues that you can pursue as well. There are other avenues into the course that you might like to have. So a greater emphasis has been placed on that as well. But also to say that as this uplift has been applied, the 7.5%, it's on aggregate, it's the same this year as it was last year and as it was the previous year. So if you want to look at it comparatively, there is no great inflation this year. It is comparative to last year and to the previous year.